So, Mr. Anderson, how do you think is the overall overview regarding the development of the high-tech industry seen by Accelebator?
We need to convince the investors, all right, the potential, right? But if things keep, moving up and down and all that, it can be a challenge. Climate change, of course, is another huge change, okay? And of course, the risk of financial meltdowns.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Jababeka's Industrial Talk, where we discuss information on updates about the latest industrial world. Back again with me, Dahi Kim, the Industrial Investor Relations Assistant Manager, as your host here today. This morning, together, we will raise the theme of Making Indonesia 4.0, focusing on the high-tech industrial center. Well, today I am here with a very special guest who is ready to unravel this theme with us this morning. And how does that theme affect in creating Indonesia 4.0? And without further ado, I welcome Mr. Anderson Tan, the Managing Partner of Accelebator. I will now invite Mr. Anderson to share what Accelebator is and what it does. Please, Mr. Anderson.
Okay. Now, the interesting thing is when you start to connect all these things together, and of course, now people call the Internet of Everything, right? Okay, from industrial system to commercial system, to consumer systems. Okay, so this is what the evolution of the industry from 1.0 to 4.0 come about. Now, one of the most important applications, all right, of Industry 4.0 is really in smart industry or smart manufacturing. Okay, because when it comes to smart industry and smart manufacturing, this is where you can actually greatly enhance productivity and therefore output. Okay, and we are seeing this significantly in a very industrialized countries, like for example in Germany. In fact, the term Industry 4.0 was coined in Germany, and now we are seeing it, significantly in many production plants in China. So if you look at smart industry, actually, what does it mean? All right. Now there are three key components of smart industry. Right. The first component is process. Okay, you have to look at the processes within the industry. Okay, industrial process. All right. Then you have the technology. Okay, what kind of technical systems do you want to put in place, right? What kind of machines, what kind of robots? Okay, and then comes the very much overlooked component of smart industry, and that is the organization itself. All right, because remember, factories don't operate on their own. All right, factories must be operated by people, and people don't come together, just to produce things on their own. They come together because there's an intent and there's an organization of the different capabilities. All right, so these three things, right? Process, technology, and organization, right, must come together, okay, to create the smart industry. Now, if you look at process itself, okay, there are also three components. All right, number one, you have the operational processes. Okay, and for operational processes, very often for it to become smart, we need to look at vertical integration. Okay, that means the business processes, okay, should be integrated. All right, from finance to supply chain, procurement, so on and so forth, should be integrated. Now, if you look at the other one is supply chain. All right, when you want to produce a product, okay, from the raw materials, procuring the raw materials, all the way to delivering the product to the consumer's hand, that whole supply chain has to be integrated as well. And this is where a lot of smart systems can come into use, all right? From how you track, okay, the procurement, to how the products are being produced, okay, to how the products are delivered, and closing the loop with customer feedback. All these things can be facilitated by technology, okay? And then how about product life cycle? Okay, when you manufacture the first product, all right, and then subsequently you want to make improvements, okay, how can you use technology to provide you with feedback? How can you use technology to provide you with, real-time information, especially if your product is a continuous product? For example, in the food manufacturing sector, you need to constantly calibrate and perhaps recalibrate your recipes and your taste and so on and so forth. So all these things could be facilitated by technology. So we are looking at that kind of a process. Now, if you look at the technology itself of smart industry, okay, again, it becomes very interesting because first, right, again, there are three components to it. First, you have the automation, right? You look at how you can put the different machines together, all right? And then, very importantly, the second component will kick in, and how do you connect the different systems, okay? So from automation, you have fixed automation, programmable automation, and flexible automation. Take, for example, robots, okay? In the early stage of industrial revolution, especially in IR 3.0, you have huge machines, like for example, huge pneumatic press machines. Those machines normally do one task, just one task, what we call fixed automation, okay? Then you have programmable automation, right? You can key in commands and the machine, can do all kinds of things like CNC, right? Okay, CNC machines and so on and so forth. All right, and then you have robots with movable arms and all that, right? Especially in the car manufacturing, okay? Then you have what we call flexible automation. Like for example, okay, service robots are what we call flexible automation, right? They move, okay? They move and they can do a few things, okay? Now, having all these robots are good, but not enough. What if, all right, you can connect them, okay? And this is actually made available by what we call connectivity. And again, things like that happen only over the past 5-10 years. For example, okay, we have what I call the growth of network infrastructure. In the past, okay, I still remember some 20 years ago, okay, when we want to have, in the office, when we want the different workstations, right, to be connected together, we need to set up a server room, okay, all right. But now there's no need to, okay. Why? Because the network infrastructure is so connected, right, such that you have the explosion of what we call cloud computing. So now you don't even need, for example, okay, to have a very powerful computer. You can have a very simple computer, but a lot of processing can actually be done on the cloud, okay? So the growth of cloud computing, all right? And of course, because of cloud computing, you can now, okay, give rise to what I call Internet of Everything, right? Where different components can have just microchips. So the microchips don't have to have high processing power. The processing power can be, at the back end, at the cloud computing side, all right? And then the front end is just sensors. So all these things, when they're connected together, all right, they give to what we call intelligent systems. And that is the third phase of smart industry, okay? Intelligence, all right? It creates a lot of data. This tremendous amount of data has to be processed. And that's why the growth of business analytics and analytics systems, okay? And of course, with data, you can organize them, okay, using artificial intelligence and machine learning, all right, to make decisions, okay, not very complex decisions per se, but very rapid decision-making processes, okay. Now, all these, of course, have to be protected, through cybersecurity, because you're talking about sensitive, sometimes even important data. So now, if you take all these things together, right, they form, from the process to the technology, they form key component of what we call the smart industry. But like I mentioned, ultimately, factories do not run on their own, right? They have to be run by people, and people have to be organized. Okay, so things like talent management within the organization, okay, structure and management of the organization, leadership, all right, and also strategy and governance have to come in. Okay, so this is where, when you put all these components together, they give rise to smart factory, smart industry, and smart economy. Okay, now how do Accelebator actually support this growth of smart economy? Okay, of course, we come from the smallest component first, all right, the smart factory. Okay, but if you look at even just one smart factory, right, the key area is actually getting the people together. So the first thing we always look at are the human capital within the organization. So this is one key component, and I'm very glad that in Jababeka, right, okay, in Cikarang, there is the President's University. Now this President University is very important, because this is where the talents, okay, are curated, knowledge is created, okay, and the next generation, right, of change makers are actually nurtured. All right, when we say change makers, okay, these are not just people who know how to be comfortable with technology, but also these are people, all right, who can have that leadership vision to see how to utilize technology, all right, to solve big, massive human created problems. Okay, and this is where I think the smart industry and smart economy will come in significantly. And for Accelebator, I mean, we are not a global company. We are a young company, but very ambitious. Okay, we're also a young company with good vision. All right, and we want to bring different change makers, all right, into the country that we work with. Okay, for example, in Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam. These are the countries that currently we operate in. Okay, and we believe these change makers, who are generally people, okay, of great talents, okay, will be interested to contribute in areas where there are huge potential. Okay, and we'll talk about some of these things later on. All right, but it is bringing the great minds together, okay, that will spark changes in the shift from a normal industry to the smart industry. Okay, so this is what I would like to share first, okay, in laying the groundwork for what we call the smart industry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. Now going back to today's topic of Making Indonesia 4.0 in High-Tech Industrial Center. As we know, Indonesia is looking to utilize advancement in modern technology to spur growth and improve the competitiveness in the industrial sector, with the government unveiling a new plan aimed at increasing manufacturing output as well. And some of the potential of technological advancements here in the strategy of Making Indonesia 4.0 includes the Internet of Things, the artificial intelligence, human-machine interface, 3D printing, robot and sensor technology to boost the industrial capacity. Now let's discuss more on this relation to Accelebator. So Mr. Anderson, how do you think is the overall overview regarding the development of the high-tech industry seen by Accelebator?
All right, okay, again, I think that's a very interesting question, but also very difficult to answer in totality, right? Okay, but one thing is for sure, okay, IR 4.0 is not just about technology. Okay, it is not just about technology. If it were just about technology, I think it would have been very easy. Okay, but it is not just about technology. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, because like I mentioned, no matter how sophisticated or how intelligent, all right, a system is or a machine is, there is a limit to what they can do. Okay, at the end of it, it is still the people, the creators of the machines, of the systems, all right, that actually give rise to or operate all these things. So behind it, that's where the challenges are. All right, and I would, briefly group them into what I call the 6 V's. Okay, 6 V's. All right, of challenges. First, we talk about the volume, right, of change. Okay, everything around us is changing, right, and are changing at a very rapid pace. All right, the volume of change is significant. Okay, and that presents huge challenges for every business, right? We talk about global proportions, okay, and I think you can appreciate what I mean by global proportions, in this time and age. Like, for example, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Okay, it is not just a conflict of 2 countries. All right, the impact is felt everywhere. Okay, from fuel to food. All right, from fuel to food. Right, so this kind of volume of change, okay, affects technological progression significantly. Right, because all forms of technological growth needs investments. Okay, and investments need to be predictable. Right, you cannot one day, the price shoot up and then another day the price tumble. Okay, investors will run away, right, because they need some level of predictability. If not, they become gamblers. Okay, all right, so the volume of change is a challenge for us in Accelebator when we try to encourage, startups or grown-ups from one country but startups in another country. Because every time when you go into a new business environment, no matter how big you are, you'll be a startup, right? Okay, we need to convince the investors, all right, the potential, right? But if things keep moving up and down and all that, it can be a challenge. All right, climate change, of course, is another huge change. Okay, and of course the risk of financial meltdowns. Okay, especially now, right, with global sanctions of Russia. Okay, never before, okay, have we seen this kind of sanctions being imposed in one country. All right, and now with global payment systems connected globally, all right, any disturbance in one payment system could actually impact global payments. So all these, the first V, right, the volume. The second is the variety, right? The type of changes that are happening. Wow, it's just mind-boggling, right? And a lot of this variety of changes actually come from technology, okay, which I've roughly illustrated just now. Okay, now technology is no longer just limited, right, to the scientific world. Okay, it cuts across every aspect of our life. Like, for example, you have financial tech, fintech, we call them. Okay, and how Bitcoin is giving a lot of headaches to governments. How do you regulate Bitcoin when you cannot control the banks? Okay, transport tech. Okay, transport tech. Just remember 5 years ago when Uber came into the region, all the taxi companies were running all over the place, trying to understand how this Uber and Grab is Gojek. All right, they are going to impact the transport industry. And then you have accommodation tech, like Airbnb and a few of these. All right, so all these are actually tech driven, and because they are so pervasive, right, they cut across every aspect of our lifestyle. Wow, that kind of variety of changes. Okay, but of course, with all these, there are opportunities, which later we can talk a little bit about it. The next V, the third V, is velocity. Okay, the speed, right, at which the changes are introduced, right, into the economy is simply just mind-boggling. Okay, they are what we call fast and furious. Okay, just take for example, I'm not sure about Indonesia, but in Singapore, just about 4 years ago, when the bike sharing came in, right, the bike sharing, yeah, wow, it just caught the government by surprise. It came at such a speed. Okay, within 1 year, everywhere in Singapore, okay, was literally littered with bicycles. Right? It's like people throwing bicycles all over the place, and the government had to step in. Okay, honestly, the government was not prepared for things like that. Okay, and then we saw other countries also facing the same challenges. Now, this is the speed at which some of these changes are actually introduced. Okay, then of course you have a pre-COVID that was especially about 10 years ago, right? 2011. Okay, the spread of terrorism. I mean 2003. Okay, there was this concern about terrorist activities and so on and so forth, and how fast it could spread. And within 10 years, different countries were actually struggling with it. Okay, so all these the speed, okay, at which changes are made. Okay, again, very much brought about by technology, especially the growth of internet. Then, of course, you have the explosion of social media. That's the next V. We call it the virality. All right, and with social media, and everybody can actually contribute their say, not just only journalists. Now there's a huge concern about what we call fake news, right? Which is the next V, veracity. Now, how do we know what is true? Okay, based on what we are reading. In the past, when you want knowledge, you get it from books, printed materials, from newspapers. Okay, and these are considered to be a little bit more reliable because it takes a lot of cost and therefore a lot of effort, and therefore, all right, people put a lot of attention to details. But if you talk about social media, right, it is so easy now to publish your opinions and thoughts, and sometimes people don't just think, and they publish. And then you have another group of people, all right, who actually publish false information, all right, to achieve their own goals and objectives. And with AI, my goodness, all right, you can't even differentiate, because now they have what I call deep fakes, right? People talk about, you can see a video on screen of this person talking, but you don't know whether is it computer generated, AI generated. Okay, right? So all these things, the veracity, the next V, right? The veracity, okay? What is true? We do not know. Okay, so when we even want to talk about investments, okay, into a particular sector, is the data that we are getting true? Right? Is the news that we are reading true about that particular place? So there's need to gather information from various sources and triangulate and so on and so forth. So it really becomes more challenging for us. Okay, and that is where I think having good, trustworthy local partners on the ground like Jababeka makes tremendous importance, right, in the business relationship. Okay, because truth reveals themselves over time. Truth will stand the test of time, just like good partnership, right? Will stand the test of time. Okay, and good partners like Jababeka will allow us, okay, to bring trusted investors, okay, to bring trustworthy contributors to the economy. And then, of course, finally, then the next V is about value, right? What kind of value can we create, right, for our investors? Okay, what kind of value can we create for the economy? What kind of value can we create for society that the industries operate in? You know, when we talk about sustainability, okay, industries cannot operate just by themselves and for their own profit anymore. Okay, they have to look at value that they can create within the society that they operate in. Okay, and this sixth V, value, all right, is actually one of the most important component that we look for. Okay, both from our investors as well as our partners, because when you bring two good values together, okay, it is not 1 + 1, but it is actually, you know, it's not just 1 + 1 = 2. It actually has multiplier effects. Okay, and we see the relationship with Jababeka as a truly valuable relationship, all right, because the kind of value that can be created, okay, is a multiplied value. Okay, we can bring something from Singapore, okay, incubate them in Cikarang, all right, and because of the ecosystem effect within the Jababeka Industrial Estate, okay, we can actually accelerate them, and because of that, it can multiply. And not only that, all right, the startups can actually contribute back to the ecosystem and further strengthen the ecosystem, okay, both at the people level as well as the industry level, all right. So all these things allow us, okay, to handle the challenges successfully. Okay, so 6 V's, they are challenges, yet they create a lot of opportunities. Okay, so I think having a good partner help us to overcome and convert the challenges, all right, into opportunities.
From the challenges that you have mentioned, how do you implement the right strategy for Accelebator for entrepreneurs to be able to compete and also maintain their existence in the face of current technological advances?
Right, okay, right. Thanks. Actually, your questions are all very difficult to answer. But thanks so much, okay, for bringing out these questions. Okay, I think looking at the kind of challenges that we are facing, okay, right strategies become important, okay, to lead to business success. Okay, so there are a few things that we look for. All right, number 1, connectivity and inclusivity. Number 2, relevance, and of course value again. And then number 3 is what we call innovation. Okay, now in these 3 strategies, okay, let me share with you how we actually look at it. Right, first, no longer can a business operate in isolation. Okay, the Industry 4.0 is about connectivity. Just now I already illustrated through the use of smart industry concepts, right? Machines need to be connected. If machines need to be connected to become smart, what more businesses? All right, so businesses need to be connected to become smarter businesses. All right, so connectivity is important, and with that we talk about an ecosystem effect. So there is no use, right, for a very big factory to exist just by itself. Okay, and neither can it effectively exist by itself. It needs to have an ecosystem of vendors and suppliers, okay, research institutes, human capital development institutions, your whole supply chain, all right, and all these things should be as connected as possible. Now, having connectivity is only one part of the equation. The other part is actually inclusivity. Okay, what do we mean by inclusivity? Okay, again, it is part of the sustainable goals, okay, that we talk about. All right, manufacturing facility cannot just exist among the businesses. It has to coexist with the community. It has to come up with strategies, all right, to include the people in the region, in the surrounding area, okay? Because ultimately it is the people, all right, that builds up the industry, right? So for Accelebator, when we want to bring in investors, we don't just bring in investors for the sake of bringing in the investment. We spend a lot of time trying to understand the kind of impact that a particular investment or investor can create in the community, okay? And then we also look at how this investor or investment can be connected, all right, to the business community, right? So connectivity and inclusivity are two important parts, right, of the strategy, okay? Of course, some things we can build on our own, some things we can't, okay? One good example is when we introduced a skills framework approach to the Philippine government, okay? We look at the existing skill system in Philippines, and when we introduce this skill system from Singapore to Philippines, we look at how to, at the very early stage, connect, okay, or interoperate among the two systems. This is what we call connectivity and inclusivity. Right? Inclusivity in this case, we actually look at how the various skills players, like the academic institutions, the training providers, the enterprises, or even the unions, right, could actually benefit from the skill system, you know, that we introduce to Philippines, right? We include them in the development, all right? In fact, right from the early stages, we already advocate what we call development by the industry for the industry. Okay, so that is how the skill system were introduced. Okay, so connectivity and inclusivity. Now, the next part is actually in relevance and value. Like I mentioned, okay, when we want to bring in the investors, okay, we always see how relevant that investor is in relation to the community, okay, and what kind of value it can create, okay, among both the industry community as well as the social community, right? Because we want to have synergistic investment. That means 1 + 1 = 3, rather than just linear addition, okay? Now, the third part, of course, of our strategy is to look at innovation, okay? Now, innovation is important because innovation not only helps in terms of building the social capital. That means innovation, you know, allows people, right, to learn new things. Innovation also helps to solve future problems. Okay, innovation helps to solve future problems. Why do I say that? Okay, problems are always changing. All right, because as industry science and technology start to uncover new things, okay, new problems will surface, okay, and we need new ways of looking at problems. All right, that is why innovation is important. And when we bring in the companies, we look for companies that can add to the innovation capital, right, of that particular estate. So in this case, you know, it takes us a lot of effort to find the right kind of partners to bring into Cikarang, for example, okay? And we are, like, for example, when we talk about energy investment, we need to find the right type of energy investor, okay? We all know one of the most well-known renewable energy is solar energy. Yeah, of course, you have solar panel manufacturers. But is there other innovative ways, okay, of looking at energy conservation, innovative ways of energy regulation, all right, innovative ways of energy consumption, all right? So these are not just about, you know, building and manufacturing more solar panels. There are different ways to solve the energy needs, for example, okay? So innovation is important, okay, for us to add to the innovation capital. Yeah, so these are the three key strategies, that Accelebator uses, right? Okay, to manage the challenges that we see.
Well, Mr. Anderson, that's very interesting. And moving on to the next question, with the government support, along with the presence of science and high-tech industry in Jababeka on a massive scale, what are the prospects for the science and high-tech industry in the future?
Okay, in fact, up to the 4 questions that you have asked, I think this one is the easiest to answer.
Oh, all right.
Okay, I think Jababeka is in a very privileged position because of its history of trust, okay, that it has built with the Indonesian government. And it is, remember, Jababeka has been around for 3 decades or so, okay, and it is growing from strength to strength, even though, right, Indonesia has gone through multiple changes, all right, of governments. Okay, so what it means is Jababeka is really, all right, a company that is trusted by governments even when there are changes, right? So the kind of massive support, okay, that the government, Indonesian government, is giving to Jababeka is really a privilege, all right, that is hard-earned by Jababeka. Now, because of that, Jababeka is in a very unique and valuable position, right, to implement a solution at scale. Okay, solution at scale. And I'm really very excited, actually, okay, to see Jababeka, right, through this JEDI hub, all right. JEDI stands for Jababeka, e-commerce and digital innovation hub. Okay, with a strong emphasis on digital innovation, e-commerce, okay, and smart manufacturing. Okay, why? Because there's a lot of use and focus on science and technology. And we all know science is generally used for discovery. Okay, science is used for discovery. Okay, in fact, the word science itself, okay, means knowledge. So science is used for discovery. Technology, on the other hand, in my opinion, is to use to solve human problems. Okay, humans create a lot of problems. Just look at e-commerce. We all enjoy e-commerce, right? The convenience that e-commerce brings us. But do you know how much problem e-commerce create? The kind of logistic wastes. Just talk about packaging. Sometimes the packaging is the item is so small, but the packaging is so big. So much waste is generated. Humans create a lot of problems. For the convenience of human, nature has to suffer. All right. For the well-being of human, nature also have to suffer. So humans create really a lot of problems. Now, with the growth of human population, okay, you'll be surprised how much the human population has grown, right? Just over the past 10 years, all right, the human population has added, right, from 7 billion to 8 billion. Over 10 years, we have increased the human population by 15 times. I mean, 15%, not 15 times, 15%. Okay, and the human population will keep growing. Now, with growth in human population, there will be even more problems, right? And we are going to see massive problems. Of course, massive problems sometimes create massive opportunities. What are some of these massive problems? All right, number one, food. With a bigger human population, you need more food, right? But it's not just about more food, it's more variety of foods, okay? Because more people have greater expectations as they become richer in that sense, okay? As more people move into the middle class, more type of food is needed. Water, wow, okay? Energy, all right? And because of energy, there is, of course, the climate challenges. And then you have demography. People are growing old, right? And old And when people grow old and their health is not that strong, okay, there are challenges, and of course diseases and finance. So there are big problems, okay. But of course, not all big problems are gloomy in nature. All right, big problems can create big opportunities. And in this case, I think the government support becomes important. Okay, and I'm glad that government is very providing a lot of support to Jababeka, okay, in the area of stability. Okay, so there's very strong government support in creating social and political stability, generally in Indonesia, okay, and specifically in the Jakarta area. Transparency of policies, ease of doing business, incentives, okay, connectivity, and of course, availability of good human capital. So all these things, I think the government has been supporting Jababeka, and Jababeka should in turn, right, continue to enhance these areas of government efforts. Right. So I think science and technology definitely will play a part in managing some of these human challenges.
In addition to the previous question, so then, Mr. Anderson, how do you predict the future trend of high-tech industry, and how do you yourself see this as an opportunity in Jababeka, which will present the Science and High-Tech Park Cluster?
Okay, I think science and technology will just keep growing, right? Science will discover new things, and technology will have to solve bigger and bigger and more challenging problems. All right, so investments into science and technology is a no-brainer. It will yield good returns. Okay, and the development of JEDI Hub is a very strategic and very apt development in Jababeka's phase of growth. Okay, and of course, greater investments in training and human capital development is important, because all science and technology rests on good human capital. Okay. Now, the other thing to take note of is, because of the growth of science and technology, and we know knowledge will shrink, the lifespan of knowledge will shrink. Therefore, continuous, okay, investment into human capital development must be the name of the game. All right, so we call it continual education and training. Okay. Now, the next important thing is about de-risk, okay, by industries. We foresee more and more industries, okay, de-risking their whole product development life cycle, okay, and their value chain, meaning that companies may not want to own everything. Okay, they want, you know, some of their partners to own some part of the risks. Okay, because now a lot of geopolitical developments are unpredictable, right? Supply chain cuts and so on and so forth. So there is a need to de-risk. Okay, and of course a system, an ecosystem approach, not just, you know, isolated development. So JEDI Hub actually provides that fantastic, you know, test bed of this kind of integrated industry development. If you look at it, all right, in JEDI Hub, this Jababeka actually built system-focused development. Right? It's no longer just about giving you a piece of land. All right, they built some of these facilities. So Jababeka actually undertakes some of these risks, which some investors are not willing to. All right, Jababeka developed high quality property, industrial property. Okay, some of them probably could have even be fitted out, all right, to some extent. And the companies can just move in very quickly, right? So that helps in de-risking. Jababeka in Cikarang has 2,000 of these industry, multinational and national companies. That builds up the ecosystem effect, okay? And like what just now you mentioned, right? There is a one-stop kind of a service. So companies can go in through ease of doing business, okay? Because some of these processes have actually been undertaken by Jababeka. Take, for example, the Halal food manufacturing hub. Wow, you know, Jababeka actually takes care of the water supply. It has to be halal. Takes care of the surrounding of what do you call the industry, because you cannot have a mix of halal and non-halal production industries. You takes care of the logistics, the cold chain storage. So all these things, all right, are actually de-risking, all right, for an investor, and make the ease of doing business much better. And of course, connectivity with the Cikarang dry port. Then you also have the the internet connectivity. I heard there's going to be this 5G, okay, very soon with the MOU that you all signed. So connectivity is very important, okay, and of course, stability, all right, stability in terms of power supply, stability in terms of manpower supply, stability in terms of the politics and the policies, all right, and I think Jababeka, right, has all these ingredients, okay, for a tremendous growth for the next for this decade. Thank you.
Wow, this was such an interesting talk with such a great topic to discuss on. However, it seems like we're almost at the reach of this talk show today. Before we close, are there any closing remarks from you, Mr. Anderson?
All right, so to all the investors out there who are listening to this talk show, okay, I definitely want to encourage you to consider Jababeka as a partner, as a very strong partner, reliable and strong, okay, and of course trustworthy, and Jedi Hub as your launch pad, right, into Cikarang and into Indonesia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson, for being here today and for sharing very insightful thoughts. Also, an appreciation to all of our viewers today. Stay tuned to our next Jababeka Industrial Talk, and don't forget to follow Jababeka Industrial Estate on our social media. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you, everyone.